Young people, from elementary school children to college and university students, have been important actors in many different social movements. And young people are also sometimes enthusiastically praised and celebrated for their activism. But there are also some really particular challenges that young people experience when they're participating in or leading social movements. And many of those challenges are the result of ageism, or discrimination against individuals and groups based on their age, or more specifically, adultism, which is prejudice and systemic discrimination against young people. Adultism, as an ideology that positions adults as better than young people, leads to some narratives about younger activists that can be very frustrating when you encounter them. For example, youth are sometimes told that their activism is just a phase that they'll outgrow when they have a better understanding of the world, or that they're just being rebellious and protesting because it's fun for them or because they want to skip school. Or they might be told that their ideas about what should be done to fix a social problem are uncomplicated, naive, too ambitious, or unrealistic. Basically, that they don't understand the issues well enough and they should just leave politics to the adults. And youth are also sometimes dismissed as being pawns of adults or being manipulated or even brainwashed by adults. And all three of these claims about youth activists are rooted in the false assumption that young people are just not capable of deep critical thinking and political analysis. Okay, so in addition to these negative narratives about youth activists, there's also another set of claims about youth activists that can also lead to your ideas and proposals being dismissed or ignored, even though they sound much more supportive and positive at first. Many of these are really related to the idea that young people are citizens in the making and not citizens in the present. So your activism might be praised because it shows that you're learning how to participate in democracy or developing important new skills. But in focusing on your activism as if it's just practice for the future, these adults sometimes then ignore the actual content of what you're trying to accomplish in the present. Or you might be told that it's absolutely extraordinary or amazing that you organized a petition drive or a school walkout as a teenager, but then find that no one actually talks to you about the reason that you are walking out or listens to your proposals for change. And so these narratives sound like support, but they can actually also be quite patronizing and may actually undermine your influence in some ways. So how then can you respond to these different kinds of dismissals? Fortunately, other young people have been through this before, and there are some strategies they've developed that you could learn from. One approach is to emphasize the direct knowledge of the problem that you have as young people. You can claim that you all have a distinctive perspective to offer, and that this means that you deserve to be included in decisions about the subject. So for example, students see the school differently than teachers and parents, and therefore they have direct knowledge to offer to school reform. So basically the idea here is you gain authority on the grounds of your distinctive experiences and therefore your distinctive expertise. Another is to turn to the idea of rights, and this often works better in countries other than the United States, which are countries where governments have signed the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. But you may still, even in the US, find some support for the idea that young people should have the right to at least express themselves and the right to be heard in decisions that actually influence and affect them. And then finally, a third approach is to challenge the idea that young people can't or don't understand politics well enough to be involved by both referencing your current knowledge, like we talked about before, but also referencing other times in history where young people have taken action and then later been regarded as leaders in some positive social shift. You can talk about how young people are regularly at the forefront of innovation and change, and that this historic position means that you deserve to be taken seriously this time too. So there are several other strategies that are also available to you, but the main thing to know is that you should expect some people to dismiss you simply because of your age, and it's good to be prepared with some responses. Now, another challenge that can come up for young people who are involved in activism, particularly for people who are just starting a new organization or a new group, is a lack of access to different kinds of resources. And this might be financial, or a place to meet, or connections to community leaders and decision makers. And so here's a place where finding some adult allies can be very helpful. Supportive adults who are really self-critical, who are aware of the dynamics of ageism and adultism, have been found to be really useful in youth activist groups. Adults can help with material resources, like a room or money, but they also can provide some historical memory and continuity. So for example, in schools, young people may only be there for a few years, but a teacher who may be there for decades can help maintain a record of things that have been done by an organization over a much longer time period. They can bring forward plans that have been made in previous years by previous generations of students that might be useful to you now in the current situation. Adults also often have more influence in institutions, and that's because of ageism. And so they can help young people gain access to leaders of those institutions, right? They can basically use their power as adults to help you get a meeting with a mayor or the city council, and then their presence in the meeting can lead to authority figures listening to you more carefully. Basically, supportive adults can use the power that they gain due to ageism to help you increase your power. And so while I focused in this video on some of the challenges that you might face because of your age, you should also know that researchers have found there are some really important strengths that young people bring to activism and to social movements. As just one example, sometimes you can get more media attention for your cause than adults can, and you can get it more quickly because you're seen as being extraordinary or special or unusual. And so while there are some challenges ahead, you should know that young people before you have also faced these challenges with creativity and persistence and have been very effective agents of social change, and that young people have lots of energy, creativity, and important special critical insights to offer to their communities and to the world. So good luck.